All right, everyone. Hello, and welcome to our first ever podcast. We are very excited, me and Travis, here for you today. This is day 1 of hopefully 5. We are going to try to do at least one episode a day. We might not be able to, but because this is Monday, and we're going to try to go to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then on Saturday we're going to have a special event that's probably going to be about 45 minutes. I'm not going to give away too much of that because that is going to be a special.
And also, we're probably going to do 2 on Wednesday because Thursday is, Thanksgiving.
Well, we might record 2 on Wednesday, but we might upload it on Thursday.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get into it after our new little theme song that we're going to do. We're starting off with just previous game stats of the season. And we're just going to kick things off with week 1 for the Michigan Wolverines. Final score for that one was 30-3 against the East Carolina Pirates.
So, a pretty easy team there. Let's see. So, J.J. McCarthy passed for 280 yards and 3 touchdowns.
And then he had passed for 3 touchdowns. Then the East Carolina, he was 11 for 28. Their quarterback Mason Garcia 11 for 18, 80 yards, 1 interception. And their running back rushing yards. Oh, Mason Garcia had some rushing yards. 8 carries for 36 yards. Good for him.
So, Blake Corum for Michigan had 10 carries for 73 yards and 1 touchdown. So, a pretty good game there. And Roman Wilson, the wide receiver for Michigan, had 78 yards and 3 touchdowns.
And the top East Carolina wideout got... Oh, shoot, I clicked off of that. Javius Bond. 3 receptions, 31 yards, averaging about 10.3 yards every carry. And that's pretty obvious that you see 31 yards, 3 receptions. Jalen Johnson, who's still in East Carolina. Yeah, Jalen Johnson for East Carolina, 3 receptions, 30 yards, averaging 10 yards a reception. Good for him. Jet Garner, he's probably a tight end, had 4 receptions for 22 yards, averaging 5.5 yards on their reception. Now we're going to go over to the Michigan, where Travis will tell you more about their rushing stats as well as their receiving stats.
So, Blake Corum, as we said earlier, got 73 yards, 10 carries, an average of 7.3, 1 touchdown. And their other running back, Donovan Edwards, had 12 carries for 37 yards, an average of 3.1. And then they had some other runs. And then
the receiving first top player for that game,
Roman Wilson, with he had 6 catches for 78 yards, an average of 13, 3 touchdowns. And their next up was Cornelius Johnson with 5 catches for 71 yards, an average of 14.2 yards.
And the last person we're going to talk about, Colston Loveland. I think he was he might have been
wide receiver.
I think he was a wideout, yeah. 4 receptions, 57 yards, averaging 14.2. And we're already at 4.5 minutes, so we're going to move on to their next game for Michigan, which was against Yeah, sorry, I skipped a game. So UNLV, the second game was UNLV 7 and the Michigan Wolverines 35, 28-point differential. Michigan had a shutout in the first, second, and third quarter. didn't score anything in that last quarter, probably assuming they played some of their bench players in the end. And then the UNLV Rebels got on the board. J.J. McCarthy was 22 for 25. That is pretty good. 278 yards, two throwing touchdowns. Blake Corum, 15 carries, 80 yards, 3 touchdowns. Their top receiver was Roman Wilson for 3 receptions, 89 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then four receptions, 89 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then Travis will tell you about the UNLV Rebels.
UNLV had Doug Brumfield had 100 yards, 10 for 19, so not that great. But then they had Jordan Young Humphrey for 2 carries for 23 yards, 1 touchdown. Jacob De Jesus for 5 catches and 46 yards.
We're still going.
And yeah, so that was that second game.
Their next game.
Hurry up here.
Their next game. Well, we can edit some of this out. Next game was against Bowling Green, 31-6 final score. I'll tell you guys about Bowling Green because they lost pretty bad. Camden Orth, 8 for 11, so they didn't do much passing. 91 yards in passing. Nick Mosley was their top rusher, 4 carries for 33 yards. And then there was top receiving ODU Hilaire. I really don't know how to pronounce that. If you're actually watching this, ODU Hilaire, we're so sorry about that. 2 receptions, 37 yards. And Travis is going to tell you about Michigan because their stats are just pretty brutal compared to a lot better compared to what Bowling Green did in that game.
So J.J. McCarthy had 8 for 13 for throwing and 143 yards, 2 touchdowns, and Blake Corum had 12 carries for 101 yards. That's pretty good, and 2 touchdowns. And their top receiver was Cornelius Johnson for 3 catches and 71 yards and 1 touchdown.
But the fact that J.J. McCarthy had 3 interceptions, that kind of makes me wonder. So David Orth must have not thrown a pick in that game. So maybe they did have a giveaway. Like they might have had a fumble probably, but no interceptions from the Bowling Green Falcons. Good for them. All right, next up in game 4 here against Rutgers, 31-7. So Rutgers only got 1 extra point than Bowling Green did in their game. J.J. McCarthy, 15 for 21, 214 yards, 1 touchdown in that game. 21 carries for Blake Corum, 97 yards, and 2 touchdowns for him. Colston Loveland was their top receiver, and he had 5 receptions and 75 yards. And then for Rutgers,
Gavin Wimsatt was 11 for 21, 180 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. So he did okay. Gavin Wimsatt was, I guess he's his brother or something.
No, that's the same guy.
Oh, yeah.
So he must have rushed a lot, too.
So, yeah, same quarterback got 6 carries for 28 yards. Christian Dremel had 3 receptions for 85 yards and 1 touchdown.
Yeah, so first quarter was pretty even. Both teams scoring a touchdown. And Michigan only getting a touchdown in the second quarter. Rutgers not getting anything. And that was just scoreless for them the rest of the game. So it really wasn't that big of a blowout, the first couple quarters. But the third quarter was when they got 10 extra points. So they went from 14 to 24. And that basically just ended it. That basically just, unless Rutgers scored another touchdown, it would have been well over. And that's what happened. Next game against Nebraska, 45-7. Their first away game, I believe, for the Michigan Wolverines. And it was just a shutout almost the whole entire game. 14 points for Michigan in the first and second quarter. Third quarter was a touchdown. Fourth quarter was touchdown and field goal. And 0 points in all 3 quarters for the Nebraska until the last quarter where they got a touchdown. J.J. McCarthy, 12 for 16, 156 yards, 2 touchdown passes. Blake Corum had 16 carries, 74 yards, and a rushing touchdown. And Roman Wilson had 4 receptions for 58 yards, 2 touchdowns, and those were the 2 touchdowns that J.J. McCarthy threw, I would assume. And then for the Nebraska Cornhuskers,
they had Heinrich Harburg, 14 for 25, 199 yards, 1 interception. And their best rusher was Josh Fleeks for 1 carry for 74 yards and a touchdown. That's a big play there. And Billy Kemp had 4 receptions for 61 yards. So that was the game, Michigan versus Nebraska. And
you can do the introduction to the next game.
Yeah.
Let me get out of this. Shoot, why is it not going?
So Michigan's next game was...
that was the first 5 games, 5-0. Next game was against Minnesota, the team that Ohio State just recently beat. We'll talk about Ohio State coming up in a little bit.
So Michigan beat Minnesota big, 52-10. So that was kind of a blowout. I mean, Minnesota still scored. So the first quarter, Michigan scored 10 and Minnesota got a field goal. Second quarter, Michigan got 2 touchdowns and Minnesota got a touchdown. So they were still sort of in it. And the third quarter, Michigan got 21 points and Minnesota got 0. Fourth quarter, Michigan got another touchdown. Minnesota didn't get anything. So great game for Michigan, not so well for Minnesota.
I don't think we'll even need to talk about their stats, honestly.
Just Michigan.
Because of the fact we'll just talk about Michigan because I mean Minnesota's quarterback threw a pick. J.J. McCarthy 14 for 20, 219 yards, touchdown for throwing touchdown to J.J. McCarthy. Blake Corum 9 carries, 69 yards, 1 touchdown. Cornelius Johnson had 3 receptions and 86 yards. Good day for those top 3 players for the Michigan Wolverines. So. Not really much to talk about for them. We'll be right back, and stay with us. The next game against Indiana.
Michigan won 52-7. Great game for them.
Let's not talk about let's just get to the stats.
See there. So J.J. McCarthy 14 for 17, threw for 222 yards, 3 touchdowns. Benjamin Hall had their rushing, 9 carries for 58 yards, and Colston Loveland had 3 receptions for 80 yards and 1 touchdown for the Wolverines. So that's what Michigan had for that game. Let's look at the next game. So Michigan's next game was against, I think, Michigan State. The absolute blowout.
Shutout game.
Yeah.
As Michigan went 8-0. Gosh, I don't even think we'll need to talk about the score in the first couple quarters. It's basically 14 in the first, 14 in the second, 14 in the third, 7 in the last quarter. So it was really just a blowout.
49-0.
J.J. McCarthy had 21 for 17,
21 for 27.
21 for 27, 287 yards, 4 touchdowns, and Blake Corum, 15 carries, 59 yards, 1 touchdown. And A.J. Barner, their top receiver, had 8 receptions, 99 yards, 1 yard short of 100, and 1 touchdown. So he must have got one of those touchdown passes from McCarthy. We're not going to do much more of the
other team.
We'll probably do Penn State and Purdue.
So the next game was
against Purdue.
Michigan and Purdue.
I don't think we'll talk about Purdue's.
So Michigan won 41-13. The Wolverines, J.J. McCarthy was 24 for 37, 335 yards. Blake Corum, 15 carries, 44 yards, 3 touchdowns. Roman Wilson had 9 receptions for 143 yards, so a great game for him. And So
Michigan had a shutout first quarter before only getting 3 in the second quarter and then allowing 6 in the second for the Boilermakers, and then getting a shutout third quarter by getting 7. And then in the fourth quarter, Michigan had 14, and the Purdue Boilermakers only got a touchdown and an extra point. So this next one is Michigan and Penn State. We're going to talk about both teams Because this is kind of like where
Top
this is
10
this is
matchup.
this is like a top 10 matchup where
Well,
if one
right.
team loses, if Michigan were to lose and Penn State won, that would help us a lot going into this Ohio State Michigan game. In fact, we would if Michigan had a loss. So saying Penn State won that game and Michigan had a loss, everyone, and then Michigan beat us, everyone would have a loss. And then I don't know how, but I saw this thing that said Penn State would be the winner of the East somehow because I guess they're like not as big a ranked. So 24-15 Michigan wins. Very devastating. We were all rooting for Penn State that week. JJ McCarthy only 7 for 8, so only threw eight passes and only 7 of them were caught, 60 yards, but I think Blake Corum just had a stellar game. 26 carries, 145 yards, 2 touchdowns. Cornelius Johnson only had 2 receptions and 24 yards. So really, I mean, what is there not to like about that?
And then Penn State didn't have their best game. They didn't play that well. So Drew Aller, the quarterback, was 10 for 22, so a lot of incompletions there. 70 yards only and 1 touchdown. And Katrin Allen for Penn State had 12 carries for 72 yards. And their best receiver, Tyler Warren, got 2 receptions for only 25 yards. So Penn State definitely could have played better, but they were playing one of the best teams in college football.
No surprise there. Now this one, Ohio State played Maryland, blew them out. Just good for us. I mean, it really could have gone anyway. For a non-ranked team, Maryland gave it all they had. But in the end, it was just not enough. The Michigan Wolverines went 11-0 to end this 11-week run. And so Michigan got 31, Maryland Terrapins 24.
Yes.
The game leaders in passing yards, J.J. McCarthy, 12 for 23, didn't have a stellar passing game. 141 yards and 1 interception. Now, Tuli Tagovailoa, the brother of Tua, who is currently playing on the Miami Dolphins, 21 for 31, okay in passing.
A lot of yards.
247 yards. 247 yards passing. That was a pretty good game. 2 interceptions. So, I mean, it really could have gone either way. Blake Corum, 28 carries, 94 yards, 2 touchdowns. Roman Hemby, 11 carries and 95 yards. 35. My bad. 35 yards.
Colston Loveland for the Wolverines had 3 receptions for 36 yards. And Caden Prather for the Terrapins had 81 yards and 3 receptions. So
that's the end of Michigan's 11-week schedule before
Ohio State.
Staying at home for their last game. I think that's all from us. So, like, overall, what do I have to say about this Michigan squad going in to the next couple of days? Because this is near the end of the episode. We'll probably talk about Ohio State maybe tomorrow or just whenever this week. But, I mean, Travis, what can we really say about this Michigan team? Like,
I think that mostly they have a nice rushing game, some good blocks, and they really make the way for Blake Corum to get some yards, and also he's really lethal in the red zone to get those touchdowns. So they have a good rushing game, a good passing also, but they may rely more on their rushing.
Yeah, I mean, what is there not? I mean, even though we are Ohio State fans and we really don't like the Michigan Wolverines, sometimes we like to say Michigan. We take the M out because we all know like the week of the Michigan game they all like tape off all the M's of like all the things at school and stuff. So, I mean, what really isn't there to like about this team? They're good, they're fast, they're strong, they're big. Like they've got all the things. They got a good quarterback. Good looks, too. They got a good quarterback. They got a good running back. They got a good set of receivers and tight ends and blockers. Like, what else?
Good defense.
Like, what else do you need? Like, that's really all you need for a good season. So I think that's all we have for today. Thank you guys so much for listening in and kind of watching. I'll probably edit in some pictures and schedules and stats and stuff.
But so tomorrow
We'll try tomorrow. We might not be able
next
to.
episode, we're gonna talk about Ohio State's first 11 games and how they did.
6 hours later. 2,000 years later.
I think we might do like a running back comparison,
Or
like Henderson and Corum, and just
Yeah.
just compare them every game and stuff. So thank you guys so much for listening in and kind of watching at the same time, because I'll probably edit in some pictures and stuff and everything else. So thank you guys so much for listening in, and we'll see you guys either tomorrow or whenever we upload our next podcast.